I am so glad. I am so glad everyone is here. It's always important to know how to lobby, and you can learn. Welcome to our Lobby and Learn, sponsored by GAE Retired. While we welcome all public school employees. This event is only for GAE members and GAE staff. Therefore, if you're not a GAE member or part of GAE staff, please sign in by putting your name, personal email, cell phone number, and school system in the chat to Tony, myself, or Karen Solheim. We appreciate your interest in GAE, and we hope you will join our organization today by visiting joingae.org. Everyone, please note that you must receive prior permission from the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director before recording audio or video of this meeting. Social media posts concerning this meeting shall not contain information about specific content of the meeting, although sharing the general information about GAE and GAE retired events are encouraged. Please be courteous to other attendees and request their permission before posting photographs containing their images. If you have questions about social media posting of GAE events, please contact the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director. Again, welcome, and I'm so glad you are here. Lots of good things are happening and lots of other things that we have to worry about. I was given the task of doing the land acknowledgement. And although I'm not living in Georgia now, I'm in Alabama, I came across this interesting facts about what happened in Native American. This is from Robbie Eldridge's book, Chickazaw to Chickasaw. The European invasion and the transformation of the Mississippi world is shocking to the eye. Few U.S. Americans have seen historical maps in which indigenous and colonial settlements are treated equally. Few of us realize the vastness of the inhabited landscape of North America prior to its colonization by Europeans. History is written and geography is mapped backwards from the present to tell the story of inevitable colonial and post-independent expansion of the United States. Without this perspective, it can seem as history began with the arrival of European colonists. Sidelining stories that predate their settlement up to and including the vast trade in enslaved native peoples that flourished from 1685 to 1715. When Andrew Jackson became president of the United States in 1829, his government took a hard line. Jackson abandoned the policy of his predecessors of treating different Indian groups as separate nations. Instead, he aggressively pursued plans against all Indian tribes which claimed constitutional sovereignty and independence from state law, which were based east of the Mississippi. They were to be removed to reservations in Indian Territory west of the Mississippi, which is now Oklahoma, where their laws could be sovereign without any state interference. At Jackson's request, the United States Congress opened a debate on the Indian Removal Bill. After fierce disagreement, the Senate passed the measure 28 to 19, the House 102 to 97. Jackson signed this legislation into law May 30th, 1830. This is known as the Trail of Tears. We need to be aware of all of our history. With the laws that are coming across saying that we cannot teach things because it makes people uncomfortable is disturbing. And so I wanted everyone to have a little bit of information about what has gone on. Trail of Tears not only affected Alabamians, Native Americans, but it also affected Georgia, Tennessee, all of the ones across around our border. So I want us to acknowledge that this is not our land. It is land that we took. And with that, I will turn it back to Tony. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. We are ready to begin, and we are going to start first with greetings from our GAE President, Lisa Morgan.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here on a Saturday morning. Want to welcome you. Thank you for being members of GAE, and thank you for your action. It's very important as we are less than 10 days away from the beginning of the Georgia legislative session that you are engaged, that you are paying attention to our legislative alerts and what is happening at the Capitol, but also that you are reaching out. Everything that we can point to that we have been successful with at the Georgia legislature is because of our members. I know you all have heard the great news about the wins we were able to secure for our ESPs for the public school employees retirement system. And the reality is that happened because we had members from all over the state attend on a Saturday morning, the week before Christmas, a meeting that was held in Columbus. And it wasn't Lisa there telling their story. It was those members, those ESP bus drivers that were there telling their story to the legislators. And that made a huge difference because from that point on, every legislator understood the issue very clearly because they heard it directly from those people involved. So that's why it's very important that you stay active, you stay engaged, and that you are reaching out to tell your story of how this legislation is going to impact you. So thank you all for being here this morning. I know we're going to have a great session, and I look forward to seeing many of you in our other legislative contact team sessions this year. Everyone is invited to attend those. The only criteria to be a member of the legislative contact team is that you commit that you will contact your legislators. So thank you for being here this morning, and everyone have a great session, and I hope that we can all learn together.
Thank you, Lisa Morgan, President of GAE. I do not see Dr. Carter on the participant list. So if it's all right with you, Mr. President, we will go ahead and get started.
Come with me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. One of the things that we want you to be aware of is that we know there are other organizations that you can join, but none of them are like GAE, because GAE is the premier and powerful group, our excellent education union that is representing public education and students and public education employees in the state of Georgia and around the nation. We have NEA. People join these other organizations and they are sorely disappointed because they're not like us. One of the things that you have when you are a member of GAE is that you're also a member of your local association, which means you have a local voice and advocacy for things that impact you right there at home with your local school board, with your situation in your classroom. So having a local organization that you're a member of is critical to make sure that advocacy is targeted towards those issues, public education issues that impact you directly. You also have a powerful voice with the state of Georgia. As a member of GAE, the Georgia Association of Educators, you have a voice that not only advocates for you on a state level, but also you are a member of the National Education Association, which advocates for you on a national level. NEA is the largest labor union in the country with over 3 million members. We represent public education employees not only around the country, but around the world, with those people serving in Department of Defense schools and in countries all over the world where there are DoD schools attached to military installations. And so we represent you on a national, state, and local level, which none of the other education organizations do. We also represent you from the start of your career in education with our aspiring educators to the finish of your career in education and the beginning of your full-time advocacy as a member of the Georgia Association of Educators Retired. We are the premier voice in the country and in the state and in your district for excellence and equity in public education, for professional dignity and autonomy, for racial and social justice in education, and for diversity and inclusion in education. When you hear about our legislative priorities, you're going to understand that they are far-reaching and yet intensely intimate when it has to do with the impact on your career and the lives of the children we serve. Remember, other organizations are not like us. We are powerful. We are the voice for public education. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Fleming, who is going to talk about something we alone do, and that is endorsements across the aisles, followed by Lisa Morgan, who is going to talk about our 2024 legislative priorities and tell you a little more about what the legislative contact team does. Joe Fleming is our government relations manager. He is our chief lobbyist. He does an incredible job and works incredibly hard for GAE. And good morning, Joe.
Well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Again, if we've not met, my name is Joe Fleming. I'll put my contact information in the chat. I'm on the agenda twice. One kind of looks like talking about the campaign and wrapping that up, which I'll do right now. And then later we'll talk about specific issues and things that are going on at the General Assembly. It was obviously a tough year for a lot of folks this year. At the state level, we were hoping to elect anywhere from 3 to 6 pro-public education representatives or senators. I think what happened at the top of the ticket in part kept that from happening. Obviously, Kamala Harris did not perform as well as a lot of us were hoping for. If she had, she might have had coattails that could have helped us pick up a couple of seats. So, at one point, Democrats were thinking they could pick up 2 seats in the House. 2 seats would be an important number for us. You may remember that we lost the voucher vote last year by 1 vote. So Lisa and I are working on a coalition with our members, of course, but also with members of the Republican Party. Were able to stop that the year prior, and we just came 1 vote short this past year. So even 2 gains in the House would have been great, but unfortunately that didn't happen. There were no partisan changes In the Senate, it's still controlled by Republicans. The margins are still the same. In the House, the Democrats did knock off one of our Republican friends, Ken Vance from Milledgeville, who, if you heard him speak at the day at the Capitol last year, you know what a wonderful job he did, and he took a lot of heat for going against his party, but they redrew his district when they did additional redistricting in 2023. So there'll be 22 new faces down there, but the partisan control is essentially the same as it was before. I just want to mention a couple things about what we did this election cycle. Thanks to you, our members, and your contributions to our political action committee, we were able to give out $130,000 to support candidates who support us. In total, we made 380,000 phone calls to GAE members and voters through various different programs that we were running, and with the help of NEA as well. Excuse me, I said 380. It's actually 553,000 phone calls were made. We did over 100,000 hustles, and we mailed about 40,000 pieces of mail through snail mail or regular mail, whatever you want to call it these days. So we had a pretty robust campaign operation, but again, it was kind of frustrating in the end that we didn't have more to show for it. 2 years from now will be another election. All the seats in the House and all the seats in the Senate in Georgia will be up again. There'll be a governor's race. All the constitutional races will be up. So we need to build our PAC back up and get everybody engaged and involved because that'll be here sooner than you realize. Tony, is there anything else in particular about the campaign stuff you want me to hit on?
I think that's good. We look forward to hearing from you a little later in the agenda about more specifics about the session.
Yeah, that'd be great.
President Morgan, it's all yours. You're muted.
Of course I am. It may be a new year, but we got the same issues. So what I'm going to share this morning, I'm going to share my screen and share with you our 2025 GAE legislative priorities. And what I want to do is not only share these priorities with you, but also let you know how our priorities are developed. GAE has standing constitutional committees, and each of those committees has 6 to 8 members from all across the state who serve on those committees. And our legislative committees' number one duty is to provide us a list of proposed legislative priorities.
Lisa, I see a black box.
Okay, it's not showing. Okay, let me try again.
Still a black.
Okay, it's still okay. I don't.
Is anyone else seeing a black box?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So the Zoom gremlins are still with us in 2025.
Yes. Okay, it keeps showing me that. Okay, let me try it a different way. It won't be quite. Won't be as big, but I'll try this way. Sorry, you all.
No,
And it's still not.
still a black box, right?
It's still a box. Okay.
Lisa, I have them up through the GAE website. Is that helpful?
If it will let you share, yes, ma'am. And the other thing I will do is I will, in the chat, I am putting a link where you can see them. Thank you, Karen, very much. I don't understand why it wouldn't let me share. Okay. So the legislative committee develops the proposed priorities, and then the priorities then go to the board and then to our representative assembly each spring. And the representative assembly is the body that approves our final legislative priorities for the year. Our current priorities are broken down into 5 categories. The first one, everybody completely expects improved salaries significantly. And so this section is just with salaries for educators. A minimum beginning teacher salary of $50,000, and for our ESPs, significant raises, and a state pay scale for our education support professionals. And let me say, if you are, this might be your first GAE meeting, our education support professionals are all of our non-certified members, all those people that we cannot have our schools without: our cafeteria workers, our bus drivers, our custodians, our maintenance personnel, our paraprofessionals, our school secretaries, our bookkeepers, anyone in the building or anywhere in the school system that is not a certified teacher, not a certified position, are education support professionals. And as you would expect, those salaries vary widely throughout our state, with some of those employees actually making minimum wage in some of our school systems. So then the next section of our priorities is about our education programs. And this is where we're talking about things like preventing voucher initiatives, reducing our class sizes back to the class size formula. These are things to enhance public education for all our students. Our next section is supporting educators, and this is where we have our priorities about improving retirement benefits and maintaining our current defined benefit plan, providing a living wage, ensuring that we have certified educators for our teaching positions. So supporting current employees. Then the next section is protect educators. And here is where we are again talking about the waiver system that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but also grievance procedures, fair dismissal, and contracts for our education support professionals. And then finally, strengthening educators and really education. This is where we're talking about those things to make things better every single day that can strengthen educators and education. Once again, supporting our educators that go for national board certification and increase their skills and knowledge, including improving working conditions. This is also where we talk about planning time and ensuring that educators have adequate time to plan. So these are our 2025 legislative priorities as voted on by our members at the Representative Assembly this past April. The Legislative Committee will be working to amend and make proposals to change this document as we move forward. The thing to understand also here is, yes, these are our priorities. This is Joe and I, these are our um marching orders. But when we are at the Capitol and something comes up, we look at this document, the legislative priorities, and then we also look at our resolutions document. The resolutions document represents our beliefs, and that is also voted on by our members at the Representative Assembly. So many times something will be brought up as this is a proposed bill, and it's not directly addressed in our legislative priorities. And at that point, that's when we go to our resolutions, our belief statements, and that guides what we are doing at the Capitol, because that is all coming from our members. Our members have voted that these are our legislative priorities, and also then the resolutions that this is what we believe. So if anybody has any questions about that process, where we are, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions for President? Are there any questions for President Morgan? Okay, now I am honored to introduce the person who is responsible for this program today, who put the whole thing together, and that is the Georgia Association of Educators retired legislative chair, Vivian Brooks. And Vivian is going to talk to us about the General Assembly.
Thank you. Okay, the General Assembly is located in the Georgia State Capitol building. Also, the governor is located there. Okay, the logistics for is the process of getting inside of the Georgia State Capitol. You must enter the Capitol from Mitchell Street. You must have a valid ID. You should take the elevator to the 3rd floor. And this is where the House of Representatives and the Senate is located. And from there, you can begin lobbying. I just want to say a little bit about lobbying. I want to define what it is. It means, the definition is to seek influence on an issue. In other words, you seek to influence a political or public official, excuse me. So you're basically trying to get the lawmakers to either vote on what you want them to vote on, or to oppose what you don't want them to pass. So why lobby? You lobby to influence or persuade public officials to support favorable legislations, or oppose unfavorable legislations. And who should lobby? You should lobby. Think very hard about lobbying so that you can make some changes in your everyday life by getting involved in lobbying, the lobbying process, and monitoring the legislations that are being passed or the bills that they're trying to pass. A lot of times it will improve your life, and it will empower you to have a say or voice in what goes on. The types of lobbying, there are 2 types: state lobbying, where state legislators are located in the General Assembly, in the House of Representatives or the Senate, or you can do federal lobbying, which is in Washington, D.C., which you would lobby U.S. Congress legislators, and they are U.S. House of Representatives. There are 14 they're from 14 districts in Georgia. And in the U.S. Senate, we have 2 senators from Georgia. Okay, then you will set up a meeting and introduce yourself when you are lobbying, or if you're lobbying on the ropes, you'll introduce yourself and then you'll talk to the legislator You won't have very much time. You'll talk with them about what you want them to vote for. Also, you have to quickly tell your story and try to get a commitment from the legislator. And you don't have very much time to ask questions. So if you're on the ropes, it's a very quick thing. And also, if you're lobbying in a legislator's office, you will have more time, and a lot of times you may end up talking with a staff, but you need to tell your story and respect the schedule of the legislator's time, and you need to also leave behind a detailed information packet about what you're lobbying about, so that if the legislator is not able to meet with you, then the staff will pass that information on. um, and after the meeting, you send a thank you note and etc. But I think you should try to monitor the General Assembly online to see what is being passed, or what legislators are trying to pass. And we had a very big win, and I'll let someone else tell about that very big win we had from lobbying. So lobbying is very productive. It may take years to get what you want, the decision you want, but it is very, very productive. And I'm going to end with a video. Tony,
Yes,
would you show the video, please?
yes, I will. Let me see if it's coming up. Hold on a second. The gremlins are strong today. Oh, just a moment. I don't have the sound optimized. Let me do this the right way.
On the second Monday of every year, the Georgia General Assembly convenes for a 40-day session. The General Assembly is our state's legislative body. Located in the capital of Atlanta, it's where state laws are written, debated, and amended. The legislature consists of two chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Much of the work in the General Assembly concerns bills. A bill is a draft of a proposed law. It's presented to a legislative body for approval. There are two types of bills, general and local. A general bill applies statewide. A local bill concerns a law at the city or county level. All bills are written to amend the official code of Georgia annotated. This is a compendium of laws for Georgia. In order for a bill to become a law, it has to pass through many stages. First, it's filed with the clerk of the House or the Secretary of the Senate. In Georgia, only legislatures in the House and Senate can introduce bills. However, any bill to raise or spend money must originate in the House. The presiding officers of each chamber take the next step. In the House, the presiding officer is called the Speaker of the House. The presiding officer of the Senate is the state lieutenant governor. After a bill is introduced, the Speaker or lieutenant governor assigns the bill to a standing committee. Standing committees are the heart of the legislative process. A standing committee is a small group of legislators that reviews and considers bills for approval. A standing committee gathers and studies the facts related to a bill. Testimony is heard from experts on the subject. Legislators who favor or oppose the bill are called to speak. Citizens have a chance to comment on the bill as well. Unlike the General Assembly, which meets once a year for 40 days, standing committees may meet year-round. The committees cover a range of subjects like transportation, education, energy, and agriculture. A standing committee decides the next step for a bill. They have several options. They can report the bill back to the House favorably, with or without amendments. They can report out a substitute bill. They can report the bill with a do not pass recommendation, or they can hold the bill from consideration.
Yeah, I want to get rid of that. And then that.
Can you
Once
please
the bills come out
mute
of the committee,
yourself?
it's put on the Rules calendar. Prepared by the Rules Committee every evening during the legislative session, the Rules calendar determines what bills will be introduced and when. Presiding officers now present the bills to the chamber. The bills are called up one by one, and debate takes place. Legislative members may come forward to speak at the well, a podium at the head of the chamber, or legislators may ask questions from their desk. After debate, a vote is held. Legislators vote yea or nay through an electronic voting system. A majority of votes is required for passage of the bill. In the smaller 56-member Senate, that's 29 votes. The larger 180-member House requires 91 votes for a bill to pass. Identical bills must pass the House of Representatives and the Senate to become law. A passed bill is sent from one house to another. If the bill is amended by the second house, it is sent back to the house where it originated. That house can accept or refuse the bill. If the bill is refused, it's sent back to the other chamber, and the house that added amendments can remove them or stand firm. If the two houses cannot agree on the particulars of a bill, it moves to the conference committee, which consists of 3 members of each house. The conference committee tries to forge a compromise acceptable to both houses, and then writes a report, which is presented to the Senate and the House of Representatives. The last stage of the legislative process involves the executive branch of state government, the governor's office. In general, the governor receives most bills at the end of the legislative session, at which time the governor has 40 days to act on the bill. The governor has 3 options: sign the bill into law, veto the bill, or do nothing. If the bill is vetoed, it is sent back to the House where it was introduced. The bill may or may not then overcome the veto. 2/3 of both houses must vote for the bill to override the veto. If the governor does nothing with the bill, it becomes law after the 40-day period has expired.
Okay. I hope that video was helpful in helping you understand how things progress through the House and the Senate and the General Assembly. Now we're going to move forward to talk about how to find your elected officials. One of the things that a lot of people find challenging is, since redistricting, is knowing exactly what district you're in and how to get in touch with your elected officials. The first and most important step is to know who represents you, what district you live in, and who your representatives are. So if you'll give me grace for a moment, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you how to get into the My Voter page application so that you can find out what district you're in and who represents you. So let's see if this will work the way I want it to. All right, hopefully everyone can see my screen, and there should be the big word Zoom in blue in front of you. All right, the first thing you want to do is to go to the Secretary of State's website, My Voter page. And so the URL for that site is mvp.sos for Secretary of State .ga for Georgia .gov. And when you go to My Voter page, you'll be presented with the Secretary of State seal in the upper left-hand corner. Make sure you look for that and make sure you're on the right page. My Voter page is a part of the Secretary of State's web infrastructure, excuse me. You'll be required to put in your first initial, your last name, the county you live in, and your date of birth. And you submit that. And all of your information will come up. It will show your name, your gender, your race, your voter registration number, when you registered. And now I registered to vote when I was 17 and a half years old. But when I renewed my license in 2017, they asked me if I wanted to register to vote. So that's the date that shows now that I'm an active voter, and I last voted on November 5th, 2024. My address is there, my precinct card is there, which shows me where to vote. And here's my polling place. It has my voting history, the absentee ballot portal, how I voted for each one, and then it will show me my congressional district, my elected officials statewide, my Senate district, my House district, my judicial district, my county commission district, my county school board district, and my federal district. To see my elected officials statewide, I click on the district number, and it takes me to the General Assembly website, and it shows me who my elected officials are. So at that point, on that page, it will show you how to contact your senator. And there's simply a button here that says Contact Senator Elena Parrott. It also has a picture of that person. It also gives you the address of that person's office, 121A in the state capitol. And it's as simple as that. I would suggest that we listen carefully to Calvin Rollins when she talks to us about how to talk to our elected officials, because she's going to tell us how to make that initial email contact, how to schedule an office visit, and now you know how to find out who represents you in the General Assembly. And it's very easy for you to contact that person with the click of a mouse. So now I'm going to turn it over to past GAE President Calvin Rollins, who's going to talk to us about what to say and how to say it when we do contact those elected officials.
Okay, good morning to each of you. It is a great morning, a beautiful morning to President Lisa Morgan, to President Crabtree, to all of you with our retirees who are doing such an excellent job in training the upcoming lobbyists. And I'm going to go back to my picture while I'm talking. First of all, most of you, we have, well, now we have 64 participants on, which we had 74 previously. Need to know how to contact your legislators. They have done an excellent job. Our GR director, our president, and our retirees have done an excellent job in explaining everything. So it's just, I have about 10 minutes, I understand, and I would like to thank Ms. Vivian Brooks for inviting me. And I think I do have, if those of you who know me very well know that I have a story to tell. Everything that they have said this morning has been true and to the point. From the beginning of a beginning lobbyist, lobbying at your local level, your school level, there are so many things that you can accomplish by lobbying at the local level. Those things that you complain about on a daily basis, in your classroom and so forth, at level. And then being officially trained by our UNICEF director, Bert Wagnon, as a legislative contact person. Did a very good job talking to us and training us on how to talk to our legislators. We had to be a part. I noticed that our president gave us the qualifications to being a part of that legislative contact team. It is essential that you pay attention to that and volunteer. It's just like membership. It's everybody's business to lobby for education, because if you don't lobby, those a few rights that you have will be taken away. You need to know your legislators and you need to hold them accountable. Since you, Tony just showed up, if you have not found your legislator, please do that as soon as we get off Zoom, find out who it is, make contact with that person, set up a meeting and meet with that person. Let them know what's important constituents, then they need to hear from you. If you have never contacted a legislator, because we are facing so many things, and I know Joe will come back about those things that we'll, but those of you who know me very well know that during my presidency from 2010 to 2014, I always told a story when I gave a presentation. And my reason for that is I experienced several things at every level. I'll tell you, when I walked into one of the schools that I worked in, I had to lobby at every level with that. First of all, get permission or get a leave to attend one of our state. And I did that, and I would get turned down. I would get it. I would come back and ask. That deterred me. I moved from that, my school level principal. I would meet with the superintendent. Times out of 10, if I went past the principal and went to the superintendent, I was able to get what it was I was requesting. So you cannot stop, you cannot be deterred. You have to be tenacious and going after those things you're lobbying for. From that level to the state level, with Burt Wagner as a legislative type person, to contact and at the next meeting, bring a message back as to which legislator we contacted and what was said, what we asked them, what the way they answered, agreed to vote for what our legislative priorities were. And we had those in when we visited our legislators and talked to them. We didn't wait until it's time to go to the Capitol to lobby. We local areas, so that once we got to the Capitol, those legislators we did not have to contact again because we had contacted them at our home base. Also, we did a legislative banquet every year prior to the legislative session, where we invited all of our legislators. They were aware of who we were. They knew us well because we had contacted them personally, by letter, by phone, and with them, so that when they came to our legislative banquet that we would have every year, and they told, based on our priorities, what they would confirm. They confirmed that they would support us in our legislative priorities. If they said they could not support us because something, maybe their governor was not a priority for the governor, then we asked them to simply take a walk. Do not vote against us. We were very adamant about that. And as a result, we were successful in many of the things that. One of the key things that we lobbied against was vouchers. We never wanted a voucher bill to pass. We were adamant about that. And I need to tell you a story about that. And the fact once I was president, the dues deduction bill being passed. And it's a bill that is coming forth now, according to some of our legislators in our area, that bill might come up again. But I need to tell you how we defeated that bill. So we need every person on this line to start contacting their legislator. That bill does not pass because it's our organization. We have many ESPs that we value. We have many certified people that we value. And if that bill passes, many of our ESPs will be eliminated because many of them don't have checking to pay their dues. So that is very important that we look out for that bill, and that bill do not, if it's coming up this time, that we work to defeat that one. When I was president, we not only did we do that during the off season and in our locals, our legislative contact people, we made contact with our legislators in their private areas, from their home areas. We made sure that we contacted them, talked to them, and let them know we still needed them to once the legislative session started. Now, to assist with that, let me just tell you a story about it, and I'll briefly tell you that story. When I became president, our GRE director resigned. And it was just before the legislative session, which was very troubling for me as president. He resigned and he moved to lobby for the medical profession. So we were in a panic to hire a director. President met and they hired, and we met and hired, along with our associate executive director, a young lady to lobby, BIGR director. And we were very nervous about it because she had not lobbied in education. We were nervous about it. So we knew that we had to do something. Work in the fields as well. So once we hired the young lady who was now, that young lady now is executive director in Oregon, who had been working at the Capitol for years that we were not aware of with the League of Women Voters. So she was a hard worker, worked very hard. And when we understood that bill was coming, we really got out and started meeting and talking to people really worked hard out in defeated. Well, it came down to that day, the last day of the session, when they were to introduce that bill. Now, one of my platforms were we cannot, as members of GAE, just talk to a person with a D in front of their name or an R in front of their name. We have to talk to everybody. We have to talk to those people that really don't want to talk to us, but we worked across the aisles to talk to everybody. And we made a lot of friends at the Capitol. We made a lot of friends back home, so that when this bill came up and we were working that morning from 8 o'clock until about 12:30, we were just so tired. It had not come to the floor. And so we decided to stop and get some lunch. And I said, we don't have time to stop and get lunch. We still have to meet with some more legislators to and and I say somebody was looking out for us. Go to
Kevin,
meeting
we can't
and
hear
meet
you. Kevin, repeat what you said. You broke up.
Okay. We stopped for lunch, walked into the cafeteria and met Governor Deal, who we had been meeting with and talking to during the year about our priorities and things that we needed to make sure that everything that were punitive to public education. He was very gracious in meeting with us. We had an open door policy. So he would sit down and talk with us concerning it. So I'm walking across the cafeteria when we stopped for lunch. And we asked, he said, what are you all doing here today? The last day of the legislative session. And we said, we are here because we're trying to prevent deduction bill from passing. He asked us which bill that was, and we told him which number it was, and he said, I'm not familiar with that bill. So legislators, when they vote on bills, don't always know what they're voting. You have to make sure that you are talking with your legislators so that they understand when they vote on a bill, that bill protects, helps, is punitive to public education. So, and he said, well, I have to go back and look at that bill, and we have to please pull educators out of that bill because no longer deduct our dues. It was a union busting bill. It was punitive to education because we would not be able to deduct our any of our dues. Alabama had just passed that bill and was successful. And therefore they had to go to reach every member to find a way to get dues. And but was the state that had nothing but and another organization they were in competition with, like we had. So that really hurt Alabama. And so we were going to make sure that it did. So in talking with Governor Deal and having a relationship with him and those legislators, he agreed that he would have that pool. Okay, so when lunch, Speaker Ralston was at the well talking and was fixing to put the bill up for a vote. Nadia then called him and asked him to take educators and not only educators, but policemen from that group of people. And he did. And to say we were successful was just an understatement because we had worked really hard with. Please don't vote for it, to please walk if you cannot vote. Our local senator, who was Senator Burt, and had said to me, you all asked me to vote on last time, and I was given a directive from the governor that I would ask him. I said, well, would you do me this one favor and just take a walk? And he said, but he didn't hold us out. So I say that to say when Joe tells you it's very important to speak to all of your legislators, and I certainly hope that our UNISERV directors, in conjunction with our I think it's very important to have the banquets and which gives us a close-up personal touch with all of our legislators in their respective areas to help prevent punitive bills from passing one session, because they already know if we present them to them when we are talking to them and meeting with them, and they will, and I'm sure many of them will work with us. Say, I'm not going to talk to the Republicans or the Democrats. We must say that we will talk.
We can't hear you,
any
Kevin.
of them to make sure that we are getting the information that we need to them. Public education. Questions? I'll take questions at this time if you have any.
Patrick's hand is up.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, former President Rollins. I would like to speak on what happened in Alabama, because what they did, it really cost them membership. But to regain their payroll deduction, They can no longer collect monies for PAC dues, nor can they be political. Alabama Education Association was very powerful in the legislature, and this has weakened them very strongly. So I want to encourage all of you to understand we are the power in Georgia. And if something like that happens to us, it will be devastating. So make sure you have with all your legislators.
Thank you, Patrick.
Any other question? Thank you, Past President Rollins, so much. Now we're going to hear from our GR director, our government relations director, Joe Fleming, who's going to talk to us about, among other things, the upcoming legislative session and the fights we have to fight.
Great. Thank you, Tony. I see on the agenda that Debbie Simons is going to speak and Lisa's going to address PSERS waivers. So I won't get too much into that. So a couple things about this session. Again, it starts on the 13th of January. It goes, it'll probably end in March or April is usually when they adjourn. So it's a long process. Even though they adjourn on the 13th, there's very little that gets done that first week. It's kind of mainly organizing, announcing committee chairmen, announcing committee rosters. And then traditionally they take the week of Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday off and not meet in formal session, although budget committees often take place during that time as well. We've got, as I think I mentioned before, 22 new legislators to get to know. Some of them we got to know very, very well during the campaign. Want to reach out to those other new members, whether they're Republican or Democrat, has been said. The other thing I want to give you is a date for our day at the Capitol. That's on Thursday, February 20th. We've really just had a remarkable response. This is a day where our members can come down, watch the legislative process, participate in the legislative process, lobby legislators, and usually by the time February 20th comes around or so, there's several bills that we need to either need your help to stop or to get passed. So if you can make it on Thursday, February 20th, please let me know. Or I think, let me see if I can find a registration link. Lisa probably has it. But there is a link up and you can go ahead and register for that. So one interesting thing about this session is the General Assembly has done away with what were called pre-filed bills. They're bills that legislators would introduce maybe in October or November before the session started. There's no real advantage to that, except that maybe it puts the word out that you're trying to get something done. But this year we're not doing pre-files, so remains to be seen what things may be coming up from some of our traditional opponents, say on vouchers, for example, or on dues deduction, things like that, because we don't have the advantage of seeing some of those bills filed earlier. I think Lisa's going to talk about this, but I do want to talk about the public school employees retirement system. We did have great success. Lisa mentioned that it's an excellent example of how our members can influence legislation. When they met with two senators a week before Christmas in Columbus, Georgia, we'd been trying to get their attention, but it mattered so much to have a personal story to go along with the names as well. Last session, we were able to eliminate a barrier in state law. State law said that the retirement benefit formula could be no higher than $16.50 times years of service. So one of the first things we want to do is get rid of that cap altogether. We we were able to do that. Senator Larry Walker, a Republican from Perry, Georgia, carried that for us and did an excellent job. So we no longer have a cap. We determine by how much the legislature appropriates each session. Now they can't go lower now than $17, so that's good. But every year going forward, we're going to have to be trying to push that up so that we can actually get some of these valuable educators a suitable retirement. Prior to the effect of this law that I just talked about getting passed, the average benefit was $290 in retirement. And another part of the equation here is that one of the things that upset Senator Walker and some of the other senators was the fact that apparently school districts are not participating in the Social Security system for ESPs. Now, years ago, school systems had the option to opt out of Social Security because TRS was a qualified plan. The PSERS is not a qualified plan. It is woefully inadequate. And it means that based on our interpretation of law, school systems should be contributing to Social Security for these workers that are in the PSERS, or ESPs, or bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, maintenance personnel, and whatnot. So Senator Walker had a bill last year. It does not carry over to this year, but it will be interesting to sit down with him very soon and talk about what he's found out. He enlisted the State Department of Audits to dig a little deeper. They did a survey of school systems. The survey that they initially did showed about 24 school systems out of compliance, not paying into Social Security for these workers. There was several systems that didn't respond, so they wanted to get the Department of Audits in to look at things a little more in a detailed way. One of our other big initiatives this year is going to be to try to find funding for compensation for student teachers. We've got a great group of aspiring educators now. Skylar Nunley, who some of you guys know, leads that group. He's got tremendous student leadership. And, I'll confess I was ignorant. I did not realize that, in some cases, student teaching is a year. I didn't know that some school systems apparently prohibit their students, some colleges and universities prohibit their students from having employment outside of their student teaching role. Plus they're enrolled full-time in school. So we want to see if we can do something to find some amount of compensation. Working on a couple of leads with that. The woman that carried the bill for us last year, Carolyn Hughley, is now the Democrat minority leader, excuse me. She's the top Democrat in the House. So that portends good for us. And we're going to try to get some Republicans like Gerald Green from South Georgia, who's a former GAE member and a former teacher, to see if we can at least get this concept codified into law. The other thing to look out for is school safety, guns and school safety. I guess was it not even a year ago, Appalachian High School and the shooting there. And it brings out kind of, Lieutenant Governor last year said he wanted to pay teachers to bring their firearms to school. That was his way of allegedly dealing with school shooters type situations. So I think that's a pretty lousy idea, but there may be some funding for resource officers or other things. But we don't like the idea of forcing teachers or making teachers or allowing teachers to bring their guns to school. I'm just not even sure how it would work. My goodness, the liability if a gun accidentally discharged, if a student stole it or took it. There's the potential for problems here, but I think also along with that, there may be some good ideas to make our kids safer in schools. We seem to be in a perennial mode in the state Senate with issues related to gender and high school sports and college sports. They've held a study committee this year to look into that issue. They met 5 times, once a month for the last 5 months. Expect legislation to to be introduced that affects both college and high school athletes. So that's going to be something else to watch. TRS, Debbie and Lisa can handle that, but we are in the first year of a 2-year session, which means that any bills that have a fiscal impact on TRS become 2-year bills. They're debated in year 1. Over the summer, they're sent out for an actuarial study to determine costs. And then if they do pass, they'll be eligible for a final vote in 2026. That's kind of what I've got going on right now. I'll be happy to take any questions if anybody has any oral comments. Crickets.
Well, Joe, I do have one question about the legislation concerning medical care for trans children. And I know that puberty blockers were prohibited in the last session. Is there any possibility that there will be an attempt to roll that back to repeal that, to change that?
When you're dealing with the state Senate, like we are in Georgia, where it is just a bastion of ultra conservative cultural warriors, yeah, I think there's a chance something like that could happen. I've not heard that particularly, but they are not bashful in the state Senate about taking on some of these really charged issues. And usually it'll pass the Senate, and we have to get the Republicans and Democrats in the House to stop it. So I've not heard of any plans like that, but it certainly wouldn't shock me.
Okay. Okay. Rita Porter has her hand up.
Hey, Rita.
Hi. I had a question about the GPO web. Will that be like retroactive for those of us who taught in a system for the first half of our career or whatever?
Yeah, I'm going to leave that to Jeff and Lisa, because I know they've been in touch with the White House. They've been in touch with NEA, and they probably have the latest and greatest on that. It'll be interesting to see how it's implemented. That's for sure.
I have another meeting at 11:30, so that's why I was going to go ahead and ask. So,
real quickly, and we'll get into it later when Jeff gets to that part. It is retroactive for 1 year. So if you have been being penalized, you will receive what you should have received for 2024, but it's just that 1 year.
so I chose when I retired, not to draw my Social Security, to wait till I was 65 because it made such a huge difference. So when I turn 65, will I get what I should be getting? Or I guess that's
No, ma'am, because you chose to wait until you're 65. You will start when you are 65, but you will not be subject to the penalties.
That's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Allison Campbell has her hand up.
Good morning. Joe, I got a question. Allison Campbell from Richmond County. You were talking about school safety.
Yes, ma'am.
And the guns. And I know you mentioned an example of an area that came up with an idea about the teachers and educators carrying themselves, and that not being the best idea. But what kind of ideas do we have for Georgia? I know it's a big issue. We're talking about, your school safety officers, but I don't know where the money would come from. That's my question. And even access, because a lot of law enforcement personnel are not really interested in coming into school. So what is the plan for us?
Sure. It's a great question. Just so you know, the state is not hurting for money right now. We have a rainy day fund with $5 billion in it. Is that right, Debbie? More than that? About right? We had about $5 billion in the bank just because um, they didn't spend it all, and some of it has to go there too. And tax revenues are still, frankly, the economy in Georgia is okay. So they're gonna. I don't think they'll have a problem funding the kind of program they want. What we saw last year was a lot of legislation about early warning systems, almost like glorified panic button type things to make sure that first responders and the schools are coordinating their responses and efforts. I could see money in the budget for more school resource officers. And I've been told, but I don't know if this is true, but I've been told that every school in the state has a magnetometer. That doesn't seem quite right to me, but maybe they do. So the things we can do on that level, but to incentivize educators to bring their guns to school just seems like an idea fraught with problems. I'd welcome any ideas you have too, Allison.
I wish I had more to consider. In Richmond County, we do have on our ID badges, we have panic buttons, and that is helpful. However, when a situation is happening, it's kind of hard to even remember that you have access to a panic button and how soon somebody is able to come and respond. I don't know if more safety type training might help in the schools, but we have to remember we come on board because we're interested in becoming educators. We don't want to be law enforcement officers. We don't want to be, safety. We want to educate our kids and prepare them. So we're not trying to do double duty and find other opportunities for employment. We're very happy with the employment of being educators. So the state and the federal government is going to have to come up with some ideas about going to protect us and our kids.
You raise a really great point. I mean, all the burdens that we put on teachers these days, the bureaucracies, the paperwork. I mean, no wonder there's such burnout in the profession. So, we had a school shooting also in Cobb County, 2 years ago now, maybe 1 year ago. David Wilkinson, who's a state representative from Cobb County, is very interested in working on school safety, and he'd probably be the guy we would work very closely with. He saw a situation at McEachern High School where they had the shooting as a real fiasco of lack of coordination between all the different responding groups, and I think he may be planning to introduce legislation to provide funding and the equipment necessary. Yeah.
But there are no other questions for Joe. We thank you, Joe, for that.
Yes.
And we
Yes,
will
ma'am.
probably hear you chime in with President Morgan when we talk about PSCRS. Now, President Morgan is going to talk to us about waivers, which is a bad word, bad word. And then we'll be followed by past President Debbie Simons, chair of the TRS board, talking to us about the teachers' retirement system, and President Morgan and also Joe talking to us about the public school employees' retirement system. So, President Morgan, it is all yours.
Okay. Yes, I am not muted. Okay, and let's hope that I am able to share. So Georgia is very unique.
That's not a thing, dude.
Can someone give me the ability to share again, please? Georgia is unique that we have local school boards have the ability to virtually ignore many state laws. So in 2008, and do you have a black box again, Tony?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I will go through this and then I will share it with you when we're done. So in 2008, the legislature adopted that school systems could have waivers because we were in the midst of the Great Recession. But those waivers were set to expire in 2010. And during this time, there was a blue ribbon panel to discuss school funding in Georgia. And so they were to determine what actually it would cost to fund public education the way it needed to be. So they basically said, we can't afford to fund schools the way we need to. So we will create this program where we will allow school systems to be innovative. And they called it IE squared. So Gwinnett County was the first system to sign on to become an IE squared system. And basically what they said was, if you are an IE squared system, we're going to give you the same amount of money, but you won't be required to follow all the state laws, so you can be innovative and do things in new ways so that you can improve education outcomes for students. And then the very next year, they said, oh, this worked great. Okay, it was 1 year. We don't really know how it worked. But then the legislature passed and said that every school district in the state had to make a decision and had to notify the state if they were going to remain a, quote, status quo system. They were going to continue to follow all the regulations, if they were going to be an IE squared system, or if they were going to become a charter system. And so that kept getting pushed back, but eventually it did happen in 2015. And so 178 of 180 school districts in the state chose to either be a charter system or what we now call strategic waiver system. And the two who did not do that are Webster County and Beaufort City Schools. Every other system in the state is either a charter system or a strategic waiver system. So if our schools, if they are a charter system, they have a blanket waiver from all state rules and laws pertaining to education in Title 20. The ones that they are required to follow is very limited and deal mainly with civil rights. Okay. The waiver systems have a specific contract with the state where they specifically list the waivers that they will use. So in exchange for these waivers, they say we're going to have increased student academic achievement. And it's one, not all, any of improved graduation rates, improved SAT, ACT scores, improvement in one state standardized test, or increase in AP or IB participation. So the accountability is very, very low with these waivers. So the keys and the ones that I focus on. So we have systems can waive anything really, but is key to understand that there are 32 systems that have waived all or part of fair dismissal. And then we get to the nots. There are only 30 systems in the state that have not waived duty-free lunch for educators. There are only 6 systems that have not waived the teacher salary scale. There are 2 systems that have not waived teacher certification requirements. And there are 2 systems that have not waived class size. So that puts, the result is, if you are in a classroom, and I've seen this across the state, high school teacher with 43 students, 35 desks. What can we do about this? Well, your system has waived class size. So literally, we have been told by the Department of Education, the only way there is a limit on that class size is if the fire marshal came in and said, this is unsafe, there are too many people in this room. So these waivers are not doing what they are intended. They are not making things better for our students. And so these are some of the things that we are definitely looking at. All of the districts, and I will put the link in the chat. If what you want to look at is your specific district and what they have waived. The new and in the new contracts were just approved with the waiver systems this past summer. And there are 130 strategic waiver systems. The document that contains these contracts is 1,300 pages long. The contracts expire June 30th, 2029. So that is what we need to be looking at as our timeline, knowing that they will be up for renewal at that point, and that we need to make changes before they are renewed again. The Department of Education did previously have a huge Excel document that showed us the specifics, and it was a lot easier to search, for example, to show which systems had, for example, waived a specific item. As of right now, with the new 2024 contracts, they do not have that spreadsheet available. What is available is the 1,300 page document that you can download, and then you simply have to go to your district to see what has been waived. So if anyone has questions about waivers and where we are. Okay,
President
thank you,
Morgan,
Tony.
I have a question. Do we
Yes.
have someone in mind to carry legislation to do away with this in the upcoming session?
Yes, Joe is obviously that's something he is working on. Senator Nabila Islam carried in the Senate last year. And I don't know where Joe is with that right now, but I'm sure we do have there. Someone said, we'll be able to see the waivers in our own county. And, I'm going to put in the chat, the, link to the Department of Education waiver page. It shows the map. So you can see the map showing where the charter systems are in yellow, and then the two pink dots, Webster County and Beaufort City. And then if it's white, they are a strategic waiver system. And there is a button in the middle of the page that says access current SWSS contracts. And that is where you can download this 1,300 page document that was just approved this past July that shows each district's waivers. Many of them, it also includes the resolution passed by your school board for the waivers. And this time the districts were required to explain what they would do with this waiver. So it also tells you what their intentions are, but that may, as we all know, when the district says this is what we are going to do, that does not ensure that it's what is going to happen.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, as Lisa pointed out earlier, 99% of the schools or your schools are not following any size of class size requirements by the state. 80% of you, you could lose part of your salary tomorrow, and there's nothing that anybody could do about it because they've waived adherence to the state salary schedule. You'll see not just a whole list of things, but these are things that if the economy were to turn much worse, we'd be powerless to do anything about it because they've given so much carte blanche.
Scary. Any other questions for President Morgan or for Joe Fleming?
I
All
have a
right.
question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm trying to absorb all of this information. So I kind of feel like I'm a little overwhelmed with it, just in the sense that I mean, when your eyes have been opened to something that you didn't even know existed, I feel like I was in my little happy second grade teaching bubble, and now that bubble has kind of been popped, but not for my students, for me. And I'm glad that GA is looking out for me, because I had no idea that any of this was outside in the world. So what as kind of just getting into understanding the legislation, the process, what should be my first steps? Just trying to understand any of this that you're talking about during the entire phone call. What should I do first to help myself be prepared for 2 years from now when we are looking at electing new leaders, or when it's time to sign my contract, or just things that really help protect me.
Yeah, and what I would say for that is you've done the first step, and that's being here today. And what I would encourage you to do is a lot of this, I mean, it's overwhelming. We're hitting a lot today. But once the session begins, or I don't know if Joe's planning to do one before the session begins as a preview, but when you start getting those legislative emails. Every legislative day, you will get an email. Read those emails. We're not going to tell you every single thing that happened, but we're going to tell you the important ones. We're going to tell you, hey, this that will impact education was introduced. So then you know what's happening, so you can be ready when we send the alert that says, call your legislators. The other thing is, like a lot of this, like you just mentioned, contracts. I will tell you, the fourth Tuesday in January, I think it is, but I'll get the exact date. We will be doing our Rights at Night with our council, and he will be talking about our contracts and what the process is supposed to be for renewing your contract. And then obviously we'll say, these are the systems that waived that contract law. So you need to be very careful. If you're in that system, you need to make sure you read and reread everything that is sent from your district about your contract. So just that's the thing that I encourage everybody to do. Read those emails and then attend those Rights at Night sessions, because that's where you're going to get the real specific information about those kind of things.
If there are no further questions, past President Debbie Simons is also the chair of the Teachers Retirement Systems Board of Trustees and represents us extremely well, very highly thought of nationally as one of the guardians of our retirement system. So we're going to turn it over to you, past President Simons, to talk to us about what's on the horizon for the teachers retirement system.
Well, thank you, Tony. And it is a pleasure to be with you all this morning. You guys have to understand, for those of you who do not know me, I am a retired teacher from Georgia. I am the one of 10 representatives on the teacher retirement system, and that is the position I represent, is the retired teachers of Georgia. But with that said, we also deal with almost 400,000 members. We have 160,000 approximately retired teachers and 240,000 active teachers in Georgia in the retirement system. So we deal soup to nuts for those that are with a part of our system. I think probably the most important thing that has happened most recently with the teacher retirement system of Georgia is we came in as #1 in the nation last year for our investment returns at 14.5%. Let me repeat that. We were #1 of all retirement systems in the United States for our investment returns. That does two things. #1, not only does it add to our coffers, which are approximately $109 billion that are held in trust. That's extremely important, that our funds are held in trust. When Lisa was just talking about the vouchers, your retirement system money cannot be touched by any waivers. It has to be dealt with in a legal manner. So we have a little bit of cushion in the fact that the legislators would have a very difficult time getting at those monies that we have. The other thing about that 14.5% investment returns is that gives to our legislators the understanding that we are a very healthy and a very reasonably run, effectively run organization, which means it will be much more difficult for our detractors of the defined benefit program to attack us, because we are extremely effective, we are sustainable, We are a responsible, physically financed system, #1 in the nation. So we've got a lot of positive things going in to this session for us. We've always been ranked somewhere in the top 10 to 15%, but this is the first time we've ever been #1 in the nation. There have been some attempts at some attacks on our system in the past. We don't have many legislators that are negative towards the retirement system. Only 2 come to mind, and Joe knows who I'm talking about, and Lucy at least 2 probably.
I sure do.
They are our only difficult individuals. Unfortunately, one of them is the retirement chair for the House. Representative Carson, who is from Cobb County, Southeast Cherokee, this will be his 2nd year on being the retirement chair for the House. He has been less than cooperative in working with Joe and with our executive director, Dr. Buster Evans. I have worked with Dr. Evans. I've been on the teacher retirement board for 12 years. I have never known a legislator who couldn't work, that Dr. Evans couldn't work with and communicate with. Maybe they didn't agree on everything all the time, but they were able to hold professional conversations. Unfortunately, last year, that was not what was going on with our House retirement chairperson. I've got a lot of specific examples. We won't go there. So I will just say that if there is something perhaps that might come up in this session, it would probably be promoted by Chairman Carson. He is an individual that TRS will be watching closely. I know that GAE will be watching him closely as well. I will share with you that Dr. Evans has a great deal of admiration and respect for Lisa Morgan as our president and Joe Fleming as our lobbyist. He has voiced to me, and we have discussed on numerous occasions, these are the kinds of people that represent the educators and educational employees of Georgia extremely well, are well received, and they are the kind of people that we in TRS like to work with as we promote our common goals. I could give a lot more details. I'm not going to. I'm going to put a podcast web address in the chat. Dr. Evans just recorded about a 45-minute state of the state of TRS that you all can go to and listen to at your leisure. I highly recommend this podcast for you to go into. He goes into more detail about why TRS is a healthy and vibrant system, #1 in the nation. And at that point, Tony, I will, and President Patrick, I will leave it at that to open it up to any questions anybody might have for me. Or if I don't have the answer, I'll find it out and convey it back to you.
Any questions for TRS Chair Debbie Simons, who is a proud member of GAE retired?
I think I have a question. Sorry, it's me again. I work in Clayton County, and Clayton County was doing an attendance incentive where they were offering a certain amount of dollars for not being absent. And then I feel like I read something where TRS came in and said you can't do that exactly the way you were doing it, and they amended it. Do you know anything about that?
The only thing that I can think of is that we do have state laws, well, it's a state policy from the board that we recognize one for one the days that you save in sick leave towards retirement. So in other words, when I retired a number of years ago, I had 1.5 years of sick leave that I didn't use. And so I was able to apply 1.5 years towards my credit for retirement. The only thing that I can think of is that if your local system is trying to buy back those days, and then they wouldn't be able to be used towards retirement, that would be problematic. Tony, what I can do is, or I'm sorry, your first name is?
Is Talia.
Talia. Talia, if you will put in the chat for me your email address, I will talk with Dr. Evans tomorrow and see if he can shed individual specific information. So again, if I understand the issue, you are saying that you work in Clayton County and that your local school system was offering you money for days that you did not use for sick leave. Is that accurate?
Not days that we didn't use. It was in attendance initiative where they were rewarding you if you had not been sick any days. So if you had been out 0 days, you got $1,200 added on. If you had been sick, I think it's a day, it was $750, and it went down to 0. So each day you were absent, it went down by $250. Now what I saw at the end, because I killed myself being there every day because I wanted that full amount of monies, is that they said, oh, well, I think they said TRS came in and said something about not being able to do that, but if you had an approved sick day or something between 0 and 4 days, that you could still be awarded that full $1,250. And I thought, why did I kill myself if I could have taken a mental health day when I needed it?
Okay. Talia, the only thing I can do is if, like I said, if you'll put your email address or phone number, whichever you want to give me, in the chat, I will talk with Dr. Evans to see if he can shed further light. I'm unaware of this specific instance.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know if there is something I should have known on the front end to be able to say, no, if it's legal, or if it's not legal, or if it's something I should subscribe to. I just want to know how to protect myself from things like that, instead of being caught on the back end of it, where I could have taken up to 4 days and still been able to receive, this incentive.
Can't answer it. Gonna try and find out.
I have a question.
Pierre has his hand raised, and then we'll take your question. Pierre, are you muted?
I got it. Good morning. I have a questions. I worked for Gwinnett County for 2 years as a teacher on a provisional license, but now I don't have a contract for school year 2024-2025. But on my pay stub, I always pay if a supplemental, I think, fees. Just my understanding was if you are out of work, sometimes something like this. But I'm asking, if you are familiar with this one, because I've been paying back 2002, 2022. So now, how can this one help me? If you're familiar about this, it's on my pay stub, and I can see I paid 276 per month. but I need to know how this can help me now because I'm out of work. What protection do I have by paying this one?
What we do is in this situation, because we do have teachers that maybe work a couple of years, don't work a couple of years, come back.
Mhm.
We put the money in a savings account for you.
Okay.
And we will keep it active. And actually, you are going to be earning 4.5% interest rate on that amount of money that you keep.
Okay.
So we will hold that for you in your account. You can also, if you want, call TRS, talk to a counselor, and they will help you set up an online account with TRS that you can then check your own contributions.
Okay.
But it's not going away. It didn't disappear. We're keeping it for you.
Okay, please. Thank you.
Okay, I see Pam Griffin and then Patrick Crabtree.
Okay, thank you, Debbie, for all that you do for retired teachers in the legislature. And my question was, there's still the COLA is still something that we as retired teachers receive. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that is given, can you tell me again when you get that and how that's determined?
Okay, it is within the state law grants your board of trustees, of which I'm a member of, the ability to grant COLAs and follow a basic procedure. Our policy is that persons will receive a 1.5% COLA awarded January 1 and July 1 if the CPI meets those qualifications. It's only happened 3 times in 20 years that we haven't been able to grant the COLA. So it's 99.9% assured that you will get it. Not only is it a 1.5% every 6 months, it's compounding. I receive more than $1,600 more at this point in my retirement than I did when I started because of the COLA. It's extremely valuable. It's extremely expensive, but it's extremely valuable. Does that help?
Let me just say one other thing,
Yes, it does.
because TRS is the envy of all the other state pension plans. I don't believe any of the other state pension plans offer a COLA twice a year. So this is something very important to protect what we've got with TRS. And Debbie, you and Buster are just the best. But yeah, I mean, if somebody comes after this thing, we got to fight.
Yeah.
Patrick?
Thank you, Tony. Yes, it's valuable because I receive Alabama retirement and we have not received a cost of living raise in 18 years. And let's not talk about Texas. It's been over 50. So we should really appreciate this. My question, Debbie, is this. Are there any groups or any legislation that's coming up right now that would try to harm our retirement system that we need to be aware of, or any legislator that we need to pound the door down to make sure he doesn't mess with us?
We know of nothing specific. Buster has been meeting with all the major players constantly since day one of since we got out of the last session. As Joe mentioned earlier, this is the first year of a 2-year. So it is a session. So it is at this point in time that a legislation that would affect us monetarily could be introduced. So it's it's a pretty critical time for us to be aware. We know of nothing, but as I said, the one individual that we would seem to be able to need to watch the most is Chairman Carson. Example, on the Friday before sine die, he stripped a Senate bill, didn't even tell the maker of the Senate bill, called a meeting of the House Retirement Committee at 8 a.m. on that Friday morning, told Buster Evans, our executive director, that there was nothing to see here and he didn't need to come to the meeting, and then proceeded to present a bill that would have stripped away 6,000 members in perpetuity from TRS membership. Now, 6,000 doesn't sound like a lot out of our 400,000 members, but you and I both know that that's just an open door to doing other things. It did not pass, but it was all extremely duplicitous in nature. And yeah, not good. He is the one person I am, yes, I see Tiffany's comment, give them an inch. We cannot give them an inch in many areas. This is one of them. So that's the only one. I know of no specific legislation. It's like Joe said, there are no necessity for pre-bill files. We kind of had a heads up. We don't know of anything, but trust me, if something comes up, you will know about it. Dr. Evans will definitely contact Lisa and Joe, or I will, whichever way we want to do this. And we will let GA know when we need to go on alert, if that's necessary.
All right, we're going to move on to PSERS. We're over our time, so I'm going to ask President Morgan and Joe to be quick and dirty on their explanation of what's going on with the other retirement system. Not the other retirement system. There is a retirement system called the other retirement system, but yeah, we don't even want to go there. But in the retirement system that represents some of our education support professionals.
Okay, no, I'll go. I'm going to go fast because I know we are running a little bit behind. So as quickly as I can say this. So in 1970, the Public School Employee Retirement System was created. It's PSERS. This is so the way this system works is not the way our teacher retirement works. It is a formula that is set by the legislature. Currently, right now, today, if you retired through PSERS with 30 years of service, you take your years of service, you multiply that by $17, and that is your monthly benefit. So somebody that drove the bus for 30 years is $510 is what they are bringing home from PSERS. That is now, because of our work over the past few years, the new minimum. We will be working to continue to improve the benefits in this program for our members. One thing that I'm just going to point out that is something that is not going to make school districts very happy with us, but at this point, members, employees pay into PSERS. It's small, but they do pay. The state pays into PSERS for those employees. The school districts pay zero into this system. So I think that's where, when we significantly improve the benefits, that's where we need to be looking with the legislation. If the districts were paying in some, then benefits could be increased for their employees. So that's where we are. We worked on this starting well, GAE has been working on this for years. The last time there were significant improvements were in 2012, and GAE did that then. So moving forward, we do want to continue with improving these benefits. So, and someone has sent me a question that I'll answer once we get down to the GPO web information.
Okay, Pierre
Okay.
has his hand raised.
Yes. I know I'm in Gwinnett. We don't pay for Social Security, but I think we have a 403B, not 401K. So what is the difference between these two?
Okay, so
Mhm.
you are you are there are several systems in Georgia that do not pay into Social Security. The 403B is just a different designation that you can pay into to save for your retirement. The Social Security, I'll talk about that when we get down to that part. But it is the 403B is like a 401k. It's just a different designation and different tax setup because we are public employees.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there a matching system when we?
That depends on your district.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that depends on your district.
Mhm.
Okay, we're going to move forward in the interest of time, and we are going to reach out to Martisa Moore, one of our NEA directors for GAE, and also Vivian Brooks and President Morgan to give us the good national news about a victory for NEA and GAE. It doesn't matter who starts first, but tell us what has happened with GPO Web.
Good morning. I was not actually prepared for this morning, but we have faced some great victory. We've been fighting it for over 40 years, and I am elated to say that President Morgan and I were texting about 12 a.m. the night that the bill was passed, and this is just a huge victory. I think Joe can probably expound and Lisa can expound on this more than I can because they've been fighting it a whole bunch longer than I have. And Miss Tony, I know you guys retired has been phenomenal in fighting for this and pushing for this for educators. And this is just a huge, massive thing in that I don't think I was like it was we were on pins and needles, like what's gonna happen. We were texting, we were emailing, we were calling our legislators, and we fought so hard for this, not only on the national level, but also on the state level. Our advocacy for our educators was phenomenal, and this has passed for us. Um, I was really excited when it passed the House and we were so pushing so hard and I got the text from President Morgan said it passed and I was in traveling at the time and I was just so excited. I was screaming looking at my so this is just phenomenal. We have emails from President Pringle, Vice President Moss saying how elated um, they are about this bill passing. And I will turn it over now because I'm really excited about it to President Morgan.
So I'm going to answer some questions. Cyril, no, President Biden has not signed it yet. Some of you may have seen on social media that it was scheduled to be signed on Monday. That is no longer the case. President Biden will be signing it tomorrow, Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. And that changed. I received an updated invitation yesterday afternoon at 5. So excited that I will be representing GAE, our members, at the White House tomorrow when President Biden does sign the Social Security Fairness Act. So let me, to understand what the Social Security Fairness Act means, let me explain what the penalties were, okay? So we know there are systems in Georgia that do not pay into Social Security. So with these penalties, what happened? I'll use myself as an example. Before I began teaching in DeKalb County, I worked 13 years. I was a state employee for a couple of years. I worked in the private sector. I paid into Social Security all that time. The last 10 years, I've been a teacher in DeKalb. I've also been doing work with GAE. I've been paying into Social Security. Under the penalties, when I retire, the amount of my earned benefit based on that work outside of teaching would have been cut up to half. Okay? Now, no, I'm not going to get credit for all the work I did in DeKalb. That's not what this does. What this does is there will be no penalty based on my teacher retirement pension. Okay? The other way that's the windfall elimination provision. The government pension offset impacts educators in this way. I'm going to talk about one of our members, Dorothy. Her husband was a state patrolman. He passed away. She was earning survivor benefits, his Social Security, as his widow. The day she retired with teacher retirement, she lost that full Social Security benefit. Okay. That's what was happening to people. Those penalties are now repealed. So you will not get credit in Social Security if you weren't paying into Social Security. But the benefit that you earn from your work outside education will no longer be penalized. And any benefit you are due as the survivor, as the spouse of someone who paid in their entire career, that will also no longer be decreased. The bill is retroactive to January 1st, 2024. So we don't know how that's going to work yet. We really don't know how any of this is going to work with them getting everybody back what they are due. But it will be signed tomorrow afternoon, and then it will be the law. And then once we know how the implementation, it's going to, how the implementation is going to work. So, yes, somebody said that's a lot that it will have to be paid. It is a lot. It is a lot that, our retirees have been penalized over the years. I'm actually surprised that they did a 1-year retro. I'm really surprised they did that because it is going to be that much. But it is there. So basically what I will tell people is, if you are still like me active, every year we get, I go online and see my Social Security earnings and my account with Social Security, and it says when you retire, you should be due this amount. Okay. It tells you based on your actual work. That is now a number that you can say is probably close to what you're going to get. It's not going to be exactly accurate because it's obviously going to be based on other things, but that's where we are. So, Pierre.
Yes. Actually, I've been working, with Gwinnett County Public School from 2005 to 2022 subbing, but from 2022 to 2024, I was a teacher teaching on a provisional license. So now my observation is when I get paid on W-2. That's mean I'm an employee. Yeah, I was at self-employed. But from 2025 to 2022, they never get any federal tax or
Right.
out of my paycheck. So I know when you use W-2, it is required for the employer to uh
Okay. But Pierre, the thing is, back in the 70s,
mhm.
public entities were allowed to pull out of Social Security. In some states, all school systems did. In Georgia, there are specific school systems, and I can't share, but I'll pull it up for you. GAE has a map showing which school systems in Georgia pulled out of Social Security then, and Gwinnett County is one of them. And there are quite a few school systems, DeKalb, particularly in the metro area, that pulled out. And they were allowed to do so because we have the state teacher retirement system. Laura said she had a question in the chat.
Yeah,
Laura?
yeah, Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So from what my understanding is, I was married for 25 years and am divorced now. So with the spousal benefits, I understand like I'm able to then look at whose Social Security is higher, mine or my ex-husband's, and I would be able to get half of his Social Security if now that this is this true? Is that
Yes,
the
ma'am.
case? Thank you.
And
That means
once the repeal of these penalties goes into effect, you will be able to do so without any penalty.
thank you. That to me, for all you out there, that is a major thing for me and for anybody else. And you have to be married at least 10 years before this can kick in for you. And it really makes a big difference for me. So I'm excited. So the other thing I know, I mean, people make questions about, can Trump repeal this? Social Security, they're going to have to get more money into Social Security because they're going to run out of money. So that's another big thing we've got to be able to be
Laura,
aware of.
Go ahead. Here's what I'm going to say to that. Okay. This, number one, President Biden is going to sign this into law. Okay. To change the law, it would then require a new bill to repeal. This bill passed in the House with over 3/4 majority. I don't remember the exact vote in the House. Joe probably does. In the Senate, it passed 76 votes to 30. Okay. That is over 3/4 majority. This was not something that passed small. It had an overwhelming bipartisan majority. I will tell you, and senators, even the senators that spoke against this bill, spoke and said these penalties are wrong, but this isn't how we should fix it. Okay. Ted Cruz spoke against it, voted against it, and said, I have a bill to fix the WEP, the windfall elimination provision. Okay. This isn't the way to fix. I have a better way to fix it. So I do not see this someone proposing something to change this again. When we look at the issue of Social Security, and this is why we were finally able to get this passed, because for years, and we still have people saying, well, this is going to move up by 6 months the date that Social Security is going to, quote, run out of money. The reality is our Congress is going to have to deal with the issue of Social Security and ensuring Social Security is sustainable. And That is something that everyone expects that they will wait until the very last minute to do, just like they do with funding our government and the continuing resolutions. So it was not, that was taken out as a major issue this time, and that's one of the reasons that it did pass. So the main thing for people to understand, if you're like me, you work in a system that does not pay Social Security, or you worked in that system and you are now retired, your Social Security will now be based on the earnings you have, that where jobs you work that you actually paid into Social Security. It will not be reduced because you have your teacher retirement. If you are already retired, yes, they will be going back and recalculating those monthly benefits that you earn. And we do not know yet how that's going to look. Obviously, the Social Security Administration will be working on it. They're already looking at what they are going to do because President Biden had very clearly indicated that he would sign this when he received it. So when we get that information, I will let you know. We haven't heard anything from NEA yet. Okay. Pierre, yes.
Yes, this is my last question. So now, if let's say I didn't pay for Social Security, now can I do a retroactive payment?
No. No. When you retire, when you apply for your Social Security, it will be based on the work and the years that you paid in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, that is a good way to end our session on some very good news about a lobbying success. It's something that's been hard fought, and we deserve it. We're going to thank you for hanging in there with us. President Crabtree is going to close us out. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us over our time. And President Crabtree, it's all yours.
Thank you, Tony. I want to give a big shout out to Miss Tony Smith. It was her baby at a retired meeting that put all this in play, and her working with President Morgan to introduce the new business item that really put teeth into it. I commend you both for the hard work that you did. And this is a GAE thing. This is why we're here. And I want to close with one more thing. When you lobby, be sure to tell your stories because they listen to your stories. And I mean, one case that I say, when people say, oh, schools and government should be run like business, I say, okay, businesses have CEOs and owners that are dictators. Is that the way you want that run? See how I made it personal? It makes them think twice. So when you use arguments, make them understand this. And with that being said, you have learned a lot today, and I thank you all for being here. We have a hard road ahead, but we will do it. And thank you all again. Thank you for all your work, Joe, that you do with us also. So with that, Happy New Year from all of us leaders at GAE Retired, and you have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for your hard work.
Thank you, guys,
Thank you.
for all that you do for us.